The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanye now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
I hope it's a good evening. Today, Monday, 29th September. We are streaming live on our social media pages. That's the Alternative Uganda Facebook page, Digital TV Facebook page, and also YouTube channel, The Alternative Uganda. Gladly, today we have not too new, Namakajo Derek. He's a lawyer, but also doubles as the Deputy Secretary General of Democratic Front. In the center is once the hopes haven't gone yet, but once a presidential hopeful, she was very, very, very hopeful that she would be a presidential candidate in the 2025-26 general elections. Sadly, she didn't make it there. She will have to explain to our viewers, all of you out there, the reasons for which she wasn't able, whether she was failed or she failed to appear on the ballot. The extreme left is Mr. Joseph Ochieno. He's our permanent panelist who hails from UPC. He also had hope to contest. Sadly, he also didn't make it. I don't know whether he also failed or he was failed. I'll begin with the council, Namakajo Derek, to say hello to the viewers from and tell us precisely what is happening in the Democratic Front, whether you are still democratic or you are just there, about to be democratic or undemocratic. Say hello to the viewers, council.
Yes, hello in a democratic way, viewers. As said earlier on, I'm Namakajo Derek Frederick, and I send salutations to everyone. When my brother Norman was introducing the panelists, it seems that perhaps I'm mistakenly placed in the wrong panel. You
are the most junior, eh? Depending on
I might be the most junior now because the people I'm with, their hopes are for running
presidential materials, both of them.
Materials. So I believe it is because of perhaps of my capacity that Digitox saw me fit to share the same panel with Madam and Mr. President, hopefully come 2031. From DF, we are doing good. We are totally democratic, considering the fact that what we implement are organ-based decisions. We do not come on board to implement individual decisions.
Council, can you justify doing good when a whole political party that claims to have structures bottom up fails to get one person to contest for presidency?
No, it's not about failing to get, but it's about standing by what you communicate to the people. Ideally, when we came from a certain alliance we had formed when we were still in the Justice Forum, that is the whole alliance, we used to communicate to the people that we don't have any instance and any reason as to why we should go in the elections still having Mr. Museveni and his appointed commission with no electoral reforms. When I talk about electoral reforms, we are talking about strategic electoral reforms, not just electoral reforms got from spaces. So when we sat as the National Executive Committee of the Democratic Front, a good number of people were saying, no, let us front a presidential candidate. Other people were saying, no, if we can't agree on fronting a presidential candidate, let us get a person we can run with and support. And a group of us, the small people, were saying, no, with valid reasons, we don't have any reason as to why we should go in the presidential elections. Rather, let us go into the grassroots strategies by participating in parliamentary elections and local government elections. Not until Ugandans realize that we need deliberate, strategic, and meaningful electoral reforms to host Mr. Museveni.
We hold it there because you have 1,000 questions from me, from your submissions when it comes to participatory or non-participatory at any levels, because the bottom line is the entire process is organized under the very person from where the lower levels you are going to contest. Anyhow, let's go to Council Pambara to also say hello to our viewers. Precisely, of course, don't dig deeper onto whether you have failed or you failed. We shall come there as we begin the entire discussion. Say hello to our viewers. And of course, you can perhaps give us a precise summary of your week, the sequence of events, I think 2 weeks. Yeah.
Over first 2 weeks. Okay. Good evening and hello to our viewers. My name is Yvonne Mpambara and I am a former aspiring presidential candidate. Incoming still. We are still fighting. The battle has just begun. For the past 2 weeks, I would say it was still a battle. We've been trying to figure out or trying to put in place exactly what happened with the Electoral Commission for us not to end up on the ballot, especially after putting so much effort to make sure that we are well equipped to be on that ballot. So for the past week or so, we've been just trying to figure out how we can move just past that, but also make sure that there's a wider representation of voices of women that have not been represented on the ballot. So we've been doing a lot of visibility to make sure that not just Ugandans, but the entire region and the world knows that for once in about a couple of decades, Uganda has decided to go with an all-male, what would I even call it? An all-male ballot.
Men's league. It's like
an all-male ballot. And yet it had been doing progressively well in the past few years. Wouldn't say it was doing extraordinarily well, but there was some representation that was not just symbolic, but it had strong women that were capable, potential presidential material. So for them to decide that this particular election cycle, it was not worthy of women running to show that they have alternative visions for this country, showed how much they see the irrelevance of women to participate. So we've been trying to make sure that the world knows that this is what the country has relegated itself to, that this is what we've degenerated to as a country, and we're not willing to open up this particular space for women to be able to ably participate and meaningfully participate and compete with men that have for the longest time been favored in this system.
Do I even have anything to add? Lawyers say have nothing useful to add. Mr. Cheno, say hello to our viewers and you summarize your, because you have been more or less in the same battle. Maybe you could say hello and maybe summarize a week or so for us and what has transpired. And then we shall dig deeper into the nitty-gritties of the entire reasons for which you failed or you were failed.
I've failed in very few things in my life. But it has been a terrible 2 weeks. In UPC's case, we spent quite a bit of time in court. And the Sunday, which is last Sunday actually, before nominations, we spent most of the mornings and afternoon at the Electoral Commission, with the chairman and his commissioners, and then the following day again in court. The sad thing is, for me, is that I'm a feminist, and I'm a gender activist, and as way back as nearly 40 years ago, you can't believe it, Yvonne, I contributed to, I would say, together maybe three of my colleagues, to a revolution in a Muslim high school when I left Mary for my A-levels, to insist that we wanted a woman to be our head prefect in a Muslim school, a very conservative high school. And we did it. And it's then that we also, at the NUSU Students' Union, the National Union of Students of Uganda organization, that the future UPC government would review the nonsensical name that it appears today, so that we regroup and reorganize the students' body, equip them and enable them, and recreate them once again as the portal foundation for young people to grow in academics, to grow in public life, to grow in governance and leadership, and to grow in public policy, and to prepare them for leadership of this country and of this continent and the world. So we'll do that. But at the NUSU thing, we deliberately decided, as a small group, ironically, actually, with the help of our deputy head teacher, who was a woman, Mrs. Karuhiji, actually, a fantastic lady. We consciously said who should run for president, and we had one, Mr. Angura, and we said who should be the treasurer of NUSU, and I became the treasurer. You can see the trust thing. But most importantly, as the students group, we picked on Felix Kuleje as our speaker. And I created Felix, and one time he gave this as a public credit, but Felix, you should do more and better. Interestingly, at high school, to become the speaker of the students group, and went on then into public debate and thing. So he is now the spokesman. In a way, actually, that pushed him there, and he concedes that. Why I'm saying that is you can see the structural system globally, but the structural systems nationally, and deliberate government policy, and deliberate movement of young peoples. And so, if that is part of my background, it is shocking that this NRA that built itself on the program and slogan that it predominantly picked from the global waste actually, and people think Museveni came with it from the bush. This business of gender balance, gender emancipation, things like women emancipation. No, this guys just did it because of the timing. So this affirmative action thing, no, these guys didn't believe it. You know, they as men-driven as they could be. Because in public life, Yvonne, we have a first lady who's a politician. And we have the vice president who's a woman.
Speaker of Parliament.
And we have the Speaker of Parliament as a woman. And we have the Prime Minister as a woman. But the other day I was in a radio program with a senior member of NRM, whom I was sort of not mentioned here. She sort of surprised me because she said we shouldn't blame the system for not nurturing women. Women should work hard and come up. But then in the background, she made an important point, Yvonne. She was saying, but Joseph, this is actually off air, that you see, we've got all these powerful women. She didn't count all those, she mentioned two of those ones. But what impact are they causing? One, in government policy, and two, in polity, including enabling women. So she was even possibly hinting that I, Ochieno, you, Ochieno, you've possibly mentored and guided more women than some of these people. Still, I didn't agree with her. But then there's a point. How on earth could a regime that had built itself over a period of time on women emancipation create a system in which at 2026 elections, meaning today, we are not able to have women of competence to be represented? And if you ask me that there are other countries, I don't know them, but I know Yvonne here. So to tell me that Yvonne cannot be a presidential candidate, and so therefore a young president of the Republic of Uganda, is extraordinary. So there is something fundamentally wrong. But number two, what concerns me are the details, and we'll discuss that, maybe we'll leave it to Yvonne, the circumstances under which these women went through the obstacles. Forget about my obstacle. I can talk about it. We can talk about that later. The obstacles I faced for not then, which made sure that I was not on the ballot. Mine was basically about a system from outside the Electoral Commission, which I don't blame the Electoral Commission, but it's still about institutional structural system. Consciously, if I were president of this country over a period of time, you should be seeing these things happen. But now that you could not say that Mr. Museveni's job it is to look around the country and gather young, beautiful ladies and say, yes, you are, go ahead and become presidential candidates. Because that is not his job. It is clearly an indictment on this regime that if what the other NRM lady was saying, that it's up to women to come and emerge and show their worth. If in 2025 we have incapacity of independent women, and here I'm talking about independent, not about political independence. By the way, I'm strongly anti-political independence. We discussed this, Yvonne, you know, in a different way. No, not stopping them as a candidate, but independent women to emerge through NRA, independent women to emerge through UPC, independent women to emerge through different kind of political organizations, and therefore also independent women like Nancy and Yvonne here, who run on their own, meaning they could easily have formed their own political party like Betty Kamin. If we don't have those kind of women who've got the capacity to be listed amongst the 8 candidates and say, there is power, then there is something structural we are not doing well. And that to me is my point.
Okay. Our viewers, we are still here trying to dissect what could have caused trouble to those that had some hope to appear on the ballot papers. But of course, that I do not want to say that he's happy at heart, Councillor Makajo, because in any case, that race, it was too big for them. It was like carrying an elephant in a cup, so they they chose to let it go. Councillor Makajo, you mentioned, before we even dive deeper into the topical discussion for which we are here, you highlighted one of the reasons for which you did not find it useful for DF to participate in the presidential elections. And if I may equally quote, you remember Council Honorable Mabike, remember back in the day, we were with him, I think like 3 or so weeks, and the same thing. And then one wonders on whether or not there is logic in courts boycotting the presidential campaign, presidential elections, but then citing, of course, irregularities and you know your mistrust towards the entire process. But then you queue up, wake up in the morning, queue up, smartly dressed, to pick nomination forms for local council and MPship, organized by the same person. Is there logic?
Of course, there is logic. That is one. That is what we have to first agree on or appreciate. Say that there is logic or not, I would suggest that it is not dependent on someone's wanting. Rather, it has to be a question of reality as Ugandans. This is what we have to first appreciate. One, just hitting back to today's theme, being no independent,
and of course no female
and female presidential candidate. I'm mainly interested in the female presidential candidate line because I don't buy the ideology of independency. Why? The instance of having political parties in play, one thing that people don't know or appreciate is that political parties are platforms for mentorship and grooming, leadership grooming. That is the instance in reality. Making an example with the Communist Party of China, many people ask why it has taken many years for other political parties to oust out CPC from the leadership of China. It is because they understood the essence of a political party. You cannot come out and contest for a presidential seat in China on a CPC ticket if you have not proved to the leadership that you have gone through various leadership, various levels from the ground. If it is entrepreneurial sector, you have to prove that you have gone through various ranks entrepreneur-wise. If it is political-wise, come and take part in active politics of the party, from the grassroots to the topmost, leadership. Why am I giving that example? Is the instance as to why we are saying we are not taking part in the presidential campaigns and we need the grassroots, call them the local government elections and the parliamentary elections. Fact be told, what the problem we are having in Uganda, it's not about whether the parliament elections are being rigged, whether the local government elections are being rigged, because we have proven by over judiciary or petitions to court that at least there's still some sense and some reality and truth and justice when courts are determining petitions brought to them on a parliamentary level. But the question is, what happens in reality when we are dealing with a presidential elections? If we were to ask some questions sincerely as Ugandans, if you are to go into a presidential election in Uganda with Mr. Museveni, what are the odds of the Electoral Commission, the so-called Independent Electoral Commission, declaring Mr. Museveni or declaring Madame Yvonne? Literally, what are the odds?
In short, you're cowards.
It's not about being cowards. In short, it is being a man enough to stand with your words. You see, it is very, very bad.
But there's some bit of contradiction.
No, there's no contradiction. Let me make this clear, Norman, before even you come in. You're having a party that is the mover of the electoral reforms in parliament. And we are saying we need electoral reforms. And we are saying if we have no electoral reforms, the elections being conducted by Mr. Museveni and his commission and his institutions are just a sham.
And you participate.
Then you want us, the same people, to come again and we compete with Mr. Museveni on the same seat.
But you're competing.
The instance of competing in parliamentary elections, like any other political party, the number one objective is to take power. If it's not that, the second objective to any progressive political party is to mentor young leaders to be good politicians. There is no way you're going to mentor young leaders to be good politicians in the current status of Uganda or current state of Uganda if you don't utilize an opportunity of entering parliament. One thing that we cannot run away of is to look for avenues of fundraising for a political party. Political parties are fundraised through parliamentary representations.
Oh, so I will now hear you on behalf of the viewers. So in short, you also want to go to parliament and tap onto the iPod.
We need to tap into the fundraising opportunities available. Why? That is the number one tool that will help all political parties in Uganda to take an opportunity to mentor leaders. No, man, you cannot mentor a young politician. You cannot mentor a young person into becoming a good leader if you don't have finances. You can't.
You see, without any prejudice.
Exactly.
And it's on record. This is not blackmail. You have been in Jema.
Yes.
And your president was in parliament and still remains in parliament, where he was. And
My former
still,
president.
Yeah, your former president, rather. And he still receives money, the iPod money. Where you were then, was that money purposeful towards mentoring young people? Because I don't want you to fall in the same trap.
See,
you have members in parliament and you face what you faced in Jim.
You see, I
now you're in
wouldn't,
DF.
as of now, I wouldn't want to be in position to talk about issues regarding Jema, because the number one reason as to why we had to come out democratically to call for elections, party elections, is for reasons like that. We had to believe, or we had issues regarding accountability and transparency. For you to have a good chairperson youth wing, a good youth wing leadership, you have to facilitate it.
Definitely.
And any political party that does not facilitate the youth wing, or all wings, even the women leagues, that means that it is just having those things in paper. If you have the women league, ensure that you champion, ensure that you support those leagues on behalf of the political parties. It takes us back to what the Elder Joseph talked about. When Elder Joseph was talking about having no female aspirant or candidate, female candidate in the race. It may took us back to the political party setup. As of now, we have no champion, a female champion in all political parties in Uganda. You can tell me Alisa Araso, being the national coordinator of ANT, but ideally also is not a champion. No, when I talk about champion, give me a party president. Literally, give me a party president of any political party in Uganda who is a female person.
Who do you blame that to?
That's what we are talking about. We shall not blame person internally, I mean directly, but we have to first appreciate that however much we have systems, theoretically, that do provide for women emancipation. When I was studying law, I majored in gender and human rights. I'm a tutor of gender. But there is what we can agree that a person is a good advocate of female emancipation theoretically. But when we come practically, the system doesn't allow. But also we personally as Ugandans, we need to appreciate that if you're a product of women emancipation, what have you done to help the system build other people? That is why all the female people who are successful we have, female leaders, female politicians we have people are still blaming them. That why are you still coming back to run? Who are those people? Where are they? Those people you have mentored. So Leslie, we need to just appreciate the role of political parties. It is not just to come that we wait for the electoral year, you come and you participate. Even political parties have not, there's no political party that has fielded a female candidate. But over years, all female candidates we have seen, they have come independent. What's wrong with political parties?
No, my party has, though.
The question here becomes, I doubt whether you would want to be in a discussion where perhaps PFF or even DF itself or CP or any other party that has sat and forced a female member to come and contest. Perhaps, I mean, their constitutions are clear. They are,
so what that they did? That they forced? You say that they forced?
They allow any party member to contest. So once they step back, for instance, we have. Wait a second, Council Pambara. We have Pambara there, brilliant, but couldn't choose amongst any political parties. So even when you blame political parties, also blame individuals like Pambara and others who choose not to participate in any political party, and they choose to come independent. So about political parties not supporting people to contest, I think this should be blamed onto the individuals.
No, let me take that. Yeah. You guys, let me take that, because I represent a political party, and I'm a champion on these issues, and we don't want to mix, including to blame. In fact, as I said earlier, these are institutional issues. It points at NRA as a system. It's an indictment on them over 40 years. Shambolic. I campaigned over many, many years that this affirmative action nonsense was a ploy to mobilize and organize women like zombies to follow this organization so that they entrench themselves. And it was a ploy to get money from IMF and World Bank. And it was a ploy to get a few darlings from London and Washington. I know some of them. That's very important. And particularly, it's a nasty ploy to sway Ugandan women, not only in massive poverty, but who are usually the most vulnerable when it comes to issues of poverty, whether it's city, unemployment, domestic violence, insecurity. Look at the conflict in northern Uganda, look at Karamoja, predominant majority Karamoja street children here. So it's a ploy. So institutional structure. We actually even have a ministry for gender. What is it doing? Then move away from that, then come to this question of political parties. Political parties are victims of the institutional malaise, where we have political parties that have also been created and founded to push particular agenda. The third element of that, I hope you guys get me, is question of leadership. In other words, when I was talking about NR, I was talking about broad leadership. Deliberate leadership to nurture, engage, and mainstream a critical mass of a population. And that is women and young people, as I was saying. That's why I started with NUSU, National Union of Students of Uganda, very deliberately. And I really hope your listeners follow me. You know, that is deliberate, but starts from the top. A conscious government. Mama Miri Obote told us one time, I think she said a few more times, but I just had the privilege of being around, but she was telling a group of people, I think including a couple of young people who came to see her, and she's saying that, you know, for the 2 times when her husband was president, Yvonne, that students, meaning young people predominantly, but tend to be more students, never made appointments to see the president. Students never made appointments to see her husband. And at their home in Kololo, there was a net open door policy for everybody, but a net open door policy for students with even less security, young people. But I also know something, that Obote's approach of government, I'll bring his approach, but really for this deliberate thing, vision, was if there was going to be a budget speech or spending rounds coming the next week, usually 2 or 3 days before, you know, consultation takes place, line ministers would retreat to his home in Kololo. They'll sit over a meal with Mama Miria. Granted, the nonsense, they say the guy was a drunkard. They drank, and like everybody else. So there will be some beers and Matthews and things like that, and food and everything else. And they go on to talking, brainstorming. Usually in there would be a couple for usual suspect ministers. Some relatives, Yvonne might have an idea who they were, once in a while, maybe those days. And then 2, predominantly the line minister would be there. So suppose it was a discussion about maybe agriculture, so the Minister of Agriculture would be there. And maybe the usual 2, 3 friends and related. But then usually there would be a professor, like the Mujaja Kikis of this world, common names. And then they would also have student leaders. You guys, you get me? So that is what used to happen. Now, imagine that is the pot of government. My brother Norbert Mao is telling you that there is a special room for discussion. But now look at how government is working. Under the critical policy, the young people, possibly students from Makerere University, plus 1 from Chapogot, then National Teachers or Technical College coming in there. So deliberate government policy. Now, back then to political parties, what do you do? So from UPC's government perspective, that's the thing. So you can imagine what was happening in UPC as a political party. The Rugundas, the Olaras, including Ochen is slightly late. I was very, very unlucky. Late beneficiary of that. I was not part of, never got opportunity to government, but you can have an idea. But more recently, what happens? I wrote a paper in 1996. I was still quite young and sharp. So I wrote a paper to Milton Obote on the mainstream of youth and women in the party. Very impressive, but the guy himself is a massive, young, cautious person. But I'll cut the story short. Fast forward, you know, in 1991, when Obote set up the Presidential Police Commission in Uganda, when parties were banned, these bandits were still enjoying Kampala, he appointed Cecile Ogwal as chair of the Presidential Police Commission, meaning the first political party in this country big to have a woman effectively as a president here at home because Obote was in exile. Now, Adonia Tiberonda told us in a small group of young people who met him at his hotel in London that, you know, when Obote set up this commission, when Obote set up this commission, and he appointed this girl, he said this girl, in a nice way actually, not patronizing, this girl. So we're wondering, you know, why is he now appointing this girl? Because in cabinet terms, Cecilia was junior. But what was setting up the leadership of the party? The president was in exile, vice president in exile, vice president in Luzira, Paul Mwanga, who told you about this NRA guys and thought he was joking, secretary general in exile, assistant secretary general in terms of administration was Cecile Ogwal. So she was technically the most senior person. But Obote could have appointed anybody to be the chair, but he appointed Cecile. Now, that is deliberate policy. Now imagine Cecile Ogwal, the Iron Lady. So effectively the first women leader of a powerful political organization in this country. And then come the death of Obote, and then of course, I'm a net contributor to these things. We had Mama Miriam as first president of the first presidential candidate and first female president of an independence political party anywhere on the continent. So that is deliberate. But finally, how does that happen? It happens, as I said, through structured schools, education systems like that. Now, the point I think you are raising, where political parties ought to be held accountable. I, as chairman, elected chairman of the party in UK, I deliberately said that we should support one Rosette to be my vice chairperson. We're now preparing for elections, you know. So you do these things consciously. You know, it was elective, but we're saying of the members we've got around, who should we support for? You know, I am going for chairperson. Who should be my vice? Who should be secretary general, general secretary? So you do that. So these things can and should be done consciously by political leaders. So I'm saying that because I don't want us to keep blaming everyone else but us. So to then suggest that the Yvonnes have failed, you know, or they refuse to go to political parties, it is true some of them may not want to join political parties because some of them, for different reasons, because of the way political parties have been demonized in the country, particularly young people like that, will be difficult. But genuinely, it's our jobs to persuade the Yvonnes to join our mainstream political parties now. The Yvonnes don't want to follow, to join political parties where the leaders are eating with dubious people in the night and pretending to have breakfast in the morning. Okay. They don't want to join political parties where people are fighting and quarreling. They don't want to join political parties who do not have values consistent with their own values. So it's up to us political parties to be leaders, create an enabling environment, create spaces, show that we are tolerant, and show that we create an enabling environment in which women and young people can come in and thrive. I hope that the future UPC party, with myself as Uganda House as president, will be able to do just that. Because we never did it before, we should do it again. But this is really a clarion call for all political party leaders.
Okay, cross to Mpambara. If I may ask you in specifics, so far the work done by EC in the first place, do you think they are yet to give us what Ugandans expect?
One, let me first comment on the previous conversation. I felt it moved so fast to the point that I would have answered it just.
No, he executed a successful coup, you know, a bloodless coup, and they took my powers and I allowed them. Yeah, it was a bloodless coup.
I was building a foundation for her.
Yeah, bloodless, all of us are still alive.
Now I'm come here to coup again and remove. But I'm going to respond to a couple of things. And I've noticed there's a certain way men answer some questions around women participation that is not ideally what a woman would answer. It's very easy to blame women that you've picked out of the system, to blame them for wrongs that have happened just because of their positions. But when you're talking to men, they will tell you that the reason why these systems are rotten is because you have the head of your fish that is rotting, right? So if it's already rotten, how does the rest function? Would you be able to still eat the rest of the fish?
Some people have considered to
chop through. It's rotten. But there's a certain, and because oppression is deeply entrenched, there's a way women are grouped. They are pulled out of that rotten system, and they're made to account a certain way that men are not made to account. Because men are part of this rotten system as well. How are they performing? So when you're blaming the prime minister, you're blaming the vice president, you're blaming, yet you know that there's this power here is centralized. Aren't you necessarily plucking them out of this entire written 3 bonds? You're pulling them out and saying you should be performing better than you are because you're a woman, you're in this position. It's not fair. It's not fair. Because when men are blaming Museveni, they are going to blame Museveni as a central body that is making all decisions in this country. So you can't expect the VP to do her role. She's in a written system as well. So if they are not able to perform their role, how will women do it? That's one. Secondly, I think there are so many dishonest conversations around meritocracy that we keep having without necessarily looking at the different biases of what has been happening. When you're looking at classes or class and how it affects participants, it's a very easy debate. People can easily debate it. When it comes to gender, it becomes complicated. They will tell you as a woman, why can't you ably compete? What's stopping you? But yet you know that a poor person is not capable of competing because they don't have resources. So how come in that particular moment you forget all the biases that women have gone through for centuries and decades, and you're willing to hold them at the same accountability level as people that have had a start line at the beginning of, they've had a race, and you're putting a woman who is literally a tortoise to compete with these people that are Usain Bolt? It doesn't make sense. Because I can't ably compete if that is the analogy or that is the line you give me as well. You know, I keep giving this analogy. If you put Usain Bolt at the start line and a person who has been in a wheelchair all their lives, can they race the same? Can they?
Definitely not.
So is it a fair competition? So why is the conversation around merit very dishonest? How would women ably compete in their entire centuries? They've been disadvantaged. How? They don't have resources and you know it. They cannot even lead parties. We are also being dishonest. How many women can actually lead a party? You think someone will wake up and just tell Bobby Wine that get off and I lead your political party? Will he ably leave that seat and say it's okay for a woman to actually lead? It's dishonest. We see what has been happening. Simu 7 is just even one person trying to challenge him for the top chairperson seat at NRM. What did he do? There are so many institutionalized biases that have been that are there against women, and we need to be honest about that. So when we're looking at reforms and policy, what we put in place for women to ably compete, putting in mind how many centuries of disadvantage and disfranchisement that has happened to them for them to be able to compete. So this conversation is not honest when we're having it outside the bounds of what operation has been for women this entire period. It's not honest.
But you see, for some reason, one wonders for how long, just like the young people say, you know, I want to believe that the three of you know about which I consider a very lame statement of government etuyambe. You know that phrase every now and again, because women, for instance, just like the youth, are many as compared to those that we are blaming, the system which is led by the president and of course his leadership. What is it that you people have not done
Who are these
to convince,
people?
I mean, the women, for instance, because you are many, and you have heard the president gladly say, I got you, I mean, from the kitchen to, you
That
know,
patronizing thing.
And then they're like, wow, and even he fronts the people that he points out the examples. What have you done in particular? Those of you that, because you belong to a clique of those that are empowered. I mean, and you cannot run away from that. What have you, the empowered women, done to bring back those that seem to be obsessed with what they don't even know? That you look, we are being hoodwinked, and this is the way to go.
We'll go back to the point that Mr. Ochin was talking about. If it's institutional rot, how much can you do? When Ugandans are complaining about what Museveni has done to Uganda, is that a single person issue? Is that a single Ugandan issue for us to address?
Definitely not.
It's a rotten system. That's what it is. When we're telling you can't change most of these things because you have to overhaul the system, what do we mean? It means the system can't work as it is right now. So you can't also expect women to do their role in a system that is rotten. How will they do it? How will they do it? How have Ugandans failed to remove Museveni?
Maybe for some reason, people blame it onto those that the likes of Namakaju and others in political parties, that some of them don't even have a clear picture of what they even want to change, or even the clear manifesto.
Who,
we have had
the women?
I mean, some of them, I mean political parties, for instance.
Okay.
Perhaps it would also run back to you that I have, I think, read a tweet from Crispin Kaheru, and I implore you to look for it, where he says, elites, that research has now proven that elites don't participate in an election. Every now and again, their participation keeps dropping. So for some reason, one might also believe that elites like you and a few of you, in fact, but not a few, you're not as few, you are many up there, haven't done their best to go and look at this lady who thinks that Mr. Museveni and NRM got them from the kitchen to the dining table, because that's what he says. And that may not necessarily be after you have become president or after you have become MP, but in your capacities, spontaneously.
Can I say something very quickly?
Yeah, in a second, I want back to her.
If you don't mind, I think this is a matter closer to my heart. And of course, it's my party's heart matter.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the reason why we must hail Yvonne, why we must hail the likes of Yvonne, who, amidst all these challenges, chose in a very extraordinary way to come up and offer themselves. call it a situation of maybe zombie you're trying to find a fitting amidst all this madness. And particularly to Yvonne plus a few of those other women who managed to mobilize sufficient signatures to be able to contest as candidates. Now, regardless, even if possibly they just about did not meet the threshold, but they did enough, even that question of threshold, I have an issue with it. I have argued, Norman, somewhere, that when they were doing this 1/3, 2/3 signatory things, we had hardly 40 districts. Now we have more than 4 times.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that even political parties and organizations, UPC has no issues. For me, I would gather those signatures within 2 days. In fact, possibly, in the normal times, we can collect, as UPC, you can collect it in a day, across the country and more. We've got systems and structures, and of course, we're a political machine. However weak and compromised, But for individuals, it's not particularly easy, even individuals with lots of money. And individual women, it's hard. And if individual women with prejudices, and individual women, Yvonne will almost have in maybe 50% of our infrastructure, naturally, perhaps representatives who are women, some of whom, without prejudice, may even end up being 20-year-old, 35-year-old girls going around, and even being pushed by a man who thinks she's a girl for date, and she's asking for signatures, kind of stuff. So the injustices and discrimination against women and the hurdles women face are huge. So you notice what I've just said, that Yvonne's likely person in Iganga is more likely to be a young woman, 28, 29, 30. And if she went on a border somewhere on the Kamuli Road, she is actually more likely to be looked at by funny boys while she's having these papers. And very likely, if she goes to a Malwa drinking place, somebody is going to patronize to a young lady before even the signature thing. So the system is actually so you notice, so away from the institutional arrangement, I'm talking about the global society. So it's difficult. And that's what I'm trying to say. This requires vision. This requires leadership. This requires political leadership. And finally, I'm sorry, what do political parties and organizations do? What should governments do? Governments, knowing these gender inequalities, and before we came on air, and I'll take you slightly more, I'd rather speak much less earlier. That's why I was saying off air, before we came on air, that certain institutional leaders making sexist comments in response to complaints by women, I think they should be challenged, and maybe there should be massive consideration for these guys to be taken to court. I come from a massive human rights-driven background. It's completely unacceptable. What we did as a government, as early as 1963, Yvonne, an independence government, those days when women were neither here nor there, the places we went there. But the government, as early as 1963, we said we want to build girl-child schools, and we opened them. You see, what are you trying to do? So that is the answer. So the answer is not for Yvonne and those average girls who are not going to school. The answer is for government and so-called political and intellectual elites to say, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with the matters of street children in Karamoja? Not because they say that what brings them into Kampala. So you do that. So it's deliberate education. What are the challenges facing women? Water. What are the challenges facing women? Access to housing. What are the challenges facing women? Insecurity. What is the challenges facing them? Domestic violence. What are the challenges facing them? This sexism at work, where an average woman who's 28, has got to persuade somebody for a kiss before she gets a job. So if that is the difficulty that woman is getting, that woman in the next 10 years is unlikely to have got a job, which is good enough to be able to make her available as a councillor 5. And that means that she's possibly unlikely at 40 to have joined a political party and showed their presence and looked like presidential material, as Nigerians would say, and so therefore be able to go ahead and compete with Chagulani in those positions. Okay. So it's institutional. So these things are deep. I really hope political parties, I really hope you guys in the media, and I really hope this regime critiques this thing and see it as a big national security challenge facing us for the future, rather than point-scoring things, one for short-termism, and then two playing who's who, playing blame games.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joseph Ochieno. I want to cross to Mpambara and use your 5 minutes, and then we shall go into a
Sure,
break. Come
sure.
back, of course, with
The
the.
question you had asked me, I didn't answer.
And,
Yes,
About
sorry.
the
no,
electoral
those
commission.
are some of the. Okay, use your 5 minutes to respond to what I asked, and then shall request the.
I'll not say
Can you
anything
read?
else until break then.
No,
Finish.
your coup
Finish it.
just comes
Finish
untimely,
it.
Can you
and of
ask
course
the
it
question
becomes
again?
successful.
Finish with it, yeah.
Could you kindly
No, I was
quote it
asking,
again?
so far with the work done, because all of us ought to accept that there is some bit of work done by EC. And I was asking, with so far the work done, do you think that they are yet to usher in something like Ugandans expect? Save for not having been nominated. No.
Also basing on what
Yeah, sure, yeah. That question is not an open-ended question. So you may begin your preamble by saying, guys, with even in particular what I went through, I doubt. So the ball is in your hands. So far the work done. I don't want to answer on your behalf.
I'm going to answer based on my experience.
Yeah, use your experience and
There's a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do for the Electoral Commission. And I'm very sure they know themselves that there's so much work to be done. If you're capable of going in a press conference and saying that women have lower seats where they have affirmative action, where they can run,
who do you cite?
this is public information. As soon as you type it in, it's a statement that will show in Daily Monitor, in New Vision. It was said during a press conference. It was by a member of the Electoral Commission. It is right there. So if someone is capable of saying that, it means there's an intentionality not to include you because they feel it's something that you should be doing. There's an intentionality to sideline. Because if you know a system already systemically sidelines certain categories of Ugandans, it means that you are not doing enough as a commission to make sure that there's able representation. I was giving the example of South Africa. They recently had to amend the electoral reforms. They have an amendment of, recently, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, they had to amend for equal representation, gender representation on the ballot. How come countries like that are able to do it, but then you are capable of telling Ugandans that it doesn't matter for women to run for presidency because they failed at the competition, yet you know they can't ably compete? So there are so many reforms they have to do. But also secondly, like Mr. Ochendo was mentioning earlier, it's not realistic to still continue to depend on some of the criteria they have for aspirants to run. The 2/3 is very exorbitant. If you think about it, it's naturally meant to sideline and push out people. It's meant to do that because, you know, it also entails so many resources that a lot of candidates don't have. So it's either this system tells us they don't want any independents to run, and that will make us question what level of democracy we have, because again, you flaunted this system to us and told us that we have the pluralism, we have the democracy for Ugandans to be able to participate and show that it's a free country of alternatives, of voices. But then at the same time, you're showing us clearly that you are not meant to participate because you're an independent. We've been saying it like it's a dirty word. I don't understand. I've grown up knowing it's okay to run as an independent. But then out of the blue, now we are being restructured back into, realign yourselves into political parties.
Stigmatized for being independent.
If we are not seeing the role modelship or the mentorship coming out of political parties, we have a right to divert and give our alternative vote to someone else.
If I may ask you in behalf of the viewers, were you failed or you failed?
I was failed by the system. I was intentionally failed.
With specifics, how were you failed?
We were sabotaged in the field with the supporter forms, which we realized on the 3rd attempt. And if you ask anyone, majority of people I've been in contact with, including Joseph himself, I was crying to these people every day, telling them I don't know what's happening. I was being gaslit to believe that it's me who is not a potential leader to mobilize my support at grassroots, not realizing that there were intentional forces that were actually sabotaging the efforts. So I was being failed. They were sabotaging files and hijacking files from the field. One was hijacked from Soroti. I complained that 45 districts were stolen in the first 2 weeks. I had to start all over again. And even after starting all over again, they stole the second file.
Did you report the matter to the authorities or you let it go?
I did report it to EC, but they didn't do anything about it. I still have those messages. I sent to them messages and told them, is this how this system is supposed to be working? People sabotage my files. And they said, no, keep pushing. You still have time to collect. And then secondly, when we reached the verification process, because eventually we got all of them, and like I said, I gave in extra districts to make up for what I'd been losing. So they can see I'm also potentially pushing, I'm fiercely pushing, because I deserve to be on that ballot. I came with 110 districts. And the first verification, I remember what he looks like. A dark-skinned gentleman. He pulled the first file, flipped through like this. He said, these signatures look like they were done by a bored person. He said, are these human? I asked him, do you think a robot sat down and signed for you these things? I said, no, take your files. Take them. No one will accept them.
Seriously, they did not go beyond his desk to be verified, and he told you to?
They did not. He chased me. I came back the next day, they told me the same thing. They said, go and change your signatures. They look like they were forged by one person. Tell me how one person can sit down and write things for 110 districts. How? How? So tell me what kind of verification process that is by the Electoral Commission. They need to do reforms around it, because clearly it's not just. If you're using one individual to go through people's files and say, from here, it is a final decision-making process, and final decision for you not to enter the nomination race, then tell us that that's how it is. But it wasn't transparent.
We have, I don't want to say, and let me avoid the statement I wanted to apply. If I may ask, all said, and of course now done, in a two-way traffic, because it's done unless otherwise you and the rest of the people that say we have failed won't appear on the ballot. And then I want to ask, what is next for your political journey? Are you going to sit back and look on, or you are going to back up some person, and of course through that person, and you exhibit your anger, justifiable anger, for lack of another word?
Is that question directed?
It is yours.
I have a problem with so many political parties in this country. And for the grievances I'm going through as a woman, for the reasons why we've not been ably represented, I feel that there are no political parties that are willing to have that battle and fight it for us. So at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, what's the point? Why are we backing up any other man to do the job for us? Because are they going to come out and speak about it? Has any attempted? They are not.
I have.
I mean, but this is why there's a certain level of voter apathy in Uganda.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
This is the reason why the women who had come out and said, we are willing to now forego all, whatever this written system is, to vote for Yvonne, now can't vote anymore. Reasons why they don't see any point in this system. They don't see any point in going to vote. So each election cycle, you're having a higher and higher voter apathy. You don't want to question that. Of course, it works for the system. They know it. They know it. But Ugandans are now in trouble. And I don't think majority of political parties are willing to do that work, to fight and make sure that women remain a big part of governance. They are not. Because even they are willing to protect their power. They don't want to do the work. So every time they're asking us, who are you willing to back? And I'm looking at 8 men, and I'm wondering, what's the point of me backing 8 men who are not willing to defend me at the end of the day?
Okay. Thank you, Yvonne. And as we go into a break, you will have, you know, if it were a school, they would say homework. Now, you have this, your break work, because as we go for a break, not homework. There are voices that even when women appeared on the ballot, some of them literally did not have any specific message for which to, you know, preach to citizens and perhaps convince them to come on board. And I don't want to mention the names. Don't you think that this could be the reason for which, if there are those that were denied signatures, such voters lost hope in such candidates, and like, we already know what even the predecessors did, and therefore you are not worth even having your signatures. It's a, the way you are preparing yourself, no, it's a break question, not a homework. We're coming back shortly.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, Bikoda. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, we're back. I know that you literally saw how prepared Yvonne Pambara and Mr. Joseph Ochino were almost standing up to answer the question because gladly we are back. And let her begin from there, from her break work, not homework. Yes, proceed. You remember the question itself.
Please pose the question again. I was so fired after I even forgot.
To precisely say, there are some voices that doubted some of your predecessors as female presidential candidates, and perhaps that could be the reason for which some of such would-be signatories denied some of your colleagues' signatures because, to their wisdom, they had been disappointed by, or even the performance, even when your colleagues appeared on the ballot, the performance was worrying. And there are those cowards who will say, even when we give them our signatures, they won't even make it any longer or even slightly ahead, and they choose to relax. What is your comment?
And how many of those 8 men on the ballot are going to make it any longer? Anyway, there are so many biases already that exist for women in governance. There are so many biases. I feel when majority of people are saying, even when you're on the ballot, you fail to do A, B, C, D, again, they are trying to still sideline you.
Thank you, Mbele.
To that point that as a woman, you should be doing exceptionally well for you to actually be standing out in these spaces. And yet you have so many men that are just there doing nonsense. Forgive my French. They are doing absolute nonsense. There's no woman that has stood so far who has not convinced me that she's a capable leader. All that from Miria Obote. She was the first woman to run in this country.
Betty Kamia.
Betty Kamia came next. They've all shown very possible potential. That are capable leaders. Up to Nancy.
Yeah.
When you listen to that very brilliant woman, Betty Kamia, same thing. Maureen, same thing. Very brilliant. But you want to sideline women and exclude their voices because, as usual, because your biases are mostly based on appearance of these women, you're not even listening. But you listen to men that are feeding you nonsensical manifestos. You're bloating yourself with systems of men, of 10, 11 men, saying absolute nonsense. But you're not listening to women.
You see,
so you go straight to a bias because systemically that is how you've been trained your whole life, to believe that women are not meant to be in these spaces.
Let me ask you with due honesty, Pambara. You have put on record that your predecessors had very wonderful manifestos, very wonderful message. What makes one gather not even 5% with such a wonderful message, in your view?
But women have been actually doing quite well. If you look at majority of these ballots, if they're doing better than men, I mean, to me, they're doing well. They are doing well. Because also there's this exceptionalism that is meant for women that I don't understand. You carry their failures at a much higher pedestal than men's failures. but you're all ably competing in a system that is doing the same thing to you, not so.
Yeah, sure.
When Mabirizi was running in 2016, you did not compare his failure to Museveni's, but you are willing to compare who? Maureen's failure
Because your majority.
at
you
the
have-
level.
you
No,
have a
no,
bigger
no,
number
no,
of,
no, no, no.
voters.
Because the same bias
When
as you have right now,
when you
even
look-
the voters have them,
when you
even
look
the
at
electorate has
when you
them.
look at the rallies out there, chances are young people and women will be majority. And in the event that you have such big numbers of women turning up to listen to the message, where is the problem? That your message, well, it's as good as you mention it, but when it comes to voting, this message, you know, like the voter seems to lose the message along the way as they go to the ballot paper.
To
But,
answer you, I don't know why when it's women running, everyone believes the system suddenly works. You've complained several election periods that Museveni has rigged votes. What makes you think he hasn't rigged even for the women who are running? What makes him exceptional to be able to beat him than the other potential candidates that you've had on the ballots? The system is also rigged against them. It was also rigged against them as women. It's not just only rigged against Bobby Wine and Besigye. Even the women who have run.
Do they
Nancy can tell you she has an experience. She said her votes were actually stolen. It's intentional for our system to stay in power with men, so they will make sure that they show that women are performing badly
and frustrate them.
and frustrates them. Why should, I mean, if you want retention power, why should they run? It's an intentional system.
Okay.
We need to be honest.
Mr. Joseph Nohangin there, kindly. I don't know whether you want to execute another
I'm
coup,
very sure.
another Bradley's coup.
No,
But like in a minute, I cross to.
No,
to-
because
to-
all I was-
so then-
Ideally, I would allow Mr. Joseph to come in because if I
Because-
come in, he will make a successful coup again. So let him first come in successfully. I give you the opportunity. Mr. Joseph.
maybe,
In
I'll come
the
after
UPC,
you.
we are victims of coups in this country. We
maybe-
don't commit coups.
maybe in a second. You see, Councillor Makajo wants to remind me of days in school. You know, some students without answers. They say, no, but you can ask my colleague.
I have
Because DF has a lot of questions without answers. Proceed.
Yeah. No, I was just a little concerned, as I think Yvonne successfully suggested, that it is strictly unreasonable and unfair to make the case that because women previously did not perform well, that particularly these people who are doing the signatories in rural spaces would necessarily have opted out. I think structurally, as we say, as we discussed, I don't think the issue is about ordinary people giving the signatories. I think the bigger problem has been in the high office, and I've been quite concerned that some of the claims and allegations as presented by Yvonne, that if true, that these are the experiences she had at the Electoral Commission, it is something that we need to take on. I will personally take this up myself. You need to take it up as Fourth Estate. I think political parties and organizations ought to take it up. And I think women's groups ought to take it up. I think the Equal Opportunities Commission ought to take this up. And all the human rights related organizations. And I think this is how we put pressure when we're campaigning for change and campaigning for better. I think we've been rather content with the mediocrity in our national politics in the last 40 years. Things happen, we lament 1 to 3 days and forget. I think, Yvonne, if I'm advising, you should not let go this. I can promise you I will be part of those to basically push this to make so that will basically make this space a space which is all inclusive, and particularly for women and younger people who constitute the majority in this country, but for whom the major public policies are made in their names. They're massively exploited, and yet they're at the end of the day the biggest victims. I had some other thing that I think has gone off my head, but I think I've remembered it. You know, to suggest that people in the villages, the Electoral Commission says the signatures look the same. There are signatures and the spaces for national IDs numbers, not so? If the spaces for national IDs, it means somebody is saying that in rural Uganda, one individual is able to go around villages
for the
and gather national IDs for 100 people, in the very least. Because the point is that if that is happening, it against an indictment on the system that local government is not working, and there is huge national security implications. If the national IDs, which are the most should be ideally protective documents. They're more important than passports. Are documents that somebody's electoral commission is suggesting can be played around with by 100 people in a particular district. That means the system is not working. So where is national security here? Now, having talked about that, some people have complained, on the other hand, that apparently ISU were the ones calling people to check. There have been nuances and suggestions by Yvonne about interruptions locally. So what is the role of national security in the process of election management? What is their relationship with the independent electoral commission? These are things that we need to be able to pick up. But back to this then. How do ESU guys pick up a phone? Are they, the ESU saying that they hand out private documents to Museveni's dubious security organizations? So the implications are huge.
Okay. Kasona Makajo.
Yes, please.
I know you are I know you might be worried because when you ask about the DF, non-participation in the process, like this is trouble. Anyhow, now that you do not have a candidate, I want to refer you to a trending message by a one Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, who gladly, while with you in Masaka, he washed his hands clean, thinking you were going to support him through this race. Unfortunately, you didn't. What I ask of you now is to inform the public. Now that DF doesn't have a candidate, what are your plans?
Yes, one, let me first say this, that political parties do not operate in the way like how people take marriage vows. Marriage vows are in between a man and a woman who move and go down the aisle and take the vows. If the so-called statement of my elder brother Muhammad Nsereko is trending, I would call that a marriage vow, if any, he had with perhaps the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuga. Those are just individual promises. But also we need to agree that political parties do operate in democratic way, or ought to operate in democratic ways. The reason as to why before registering a political party or political organ, the Electoral Commission or even the law mandates that a political party has to be governed or shall be governed by a constitution. And in the Democratic Front Constitution, it stipulates clearly various levels of leadership, from the grassroots to the topmost. And I remember back then, many people were asking the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuga, what is your next step? Are you coming back for member of parliament race or for the presidential race? And he made a statement that the party's National Executive Committee shall decide what next for my next move. What does it mean? That is a democratic statement. It shows that, yes, whereas I am the party president, but I don't take some decisions lightly. There are some organs, as per the law, mandated to make certain decisions. And I remember the office I sit in, the Office of the Secretary General, and that document or the notice was signed by the Honorable Mike Marike, whom I deputize, was issued a week too, calling for the National Executive Committee. And I assure you that at our party headquarters, the National Executive Committee was convened, and around 200 members who sit on the National Executive Committee turned up. What does it mean? That a National Executive Committee itself sitting, it is a democratic way of respecting the law governing that particular body. And a lot of opinions or suggestions came in. Among others, I made a preamble before that some were saying, let us enter the presidential race. Others were saying, no, let's get someone to back up, like the Honorable Muhammad Nsereko. And I remember a group where I subscribed to, because it is my thinking and belief from years ago, from the 2021 elections. I was like, but wait, what is the reason, or is there a reason as to why we should go into a presidential race with the one Mr. Museveni? That was a sincere question. Where we go wrong as Ugandans is we do not have an element called self-meditation. But the day you go back to your bed and you ask to yourself sincere questions, you will get sincere answers. The question is there a reason as to why we should go into a presidential election with Mr. Museveni using the current electoral laws?
Isn't that also attracting a very sincere question to you? That whereas I may not participate in the presidential election, I'm also sacrificing or offering my members to participate. Because you see, Council,
to participate where?
Local government and parliamentary. You see, what I don't want you to run away from is that fact that there is no another electoral commission that organizes parliamentary elections. It is the same, independent.
I would request through your seat to just ask my dear panelists here a sincere question. Do we have need in Uganda for electoral reforms?
You say, you are taking my powers.
I want to pose a question.
No, it is a sincere question. Because now we are in sincere talk.
Yes,
do we have need to have electoral reforms in Uganda?
This very sincere talk is the same sincere question and the honest question I want you to reflect on.
Yes.
Look, there is no another Byabakama presiding over parliamentary elections. There is no another Byabakama presiding over a local government. So why do you expect that the result will be...
Let me just supplement.
He's your fellow council.
Please do before I answer.
But also with the kind of system we are looking at, knowing that power has been centralized into one man, right? What is a possibility of these people we are flaunting from local council level to parliamentary level to be able to do their role under a system that is already failing? Because if you're giving it away to Museveni to lead, clearly it's like saying we are endorsing.
So, Madam President,
so even at the parliamentary and local council level, how are they going to do their job
Madam President, I appreciate your submission.
Council.
But also we have need for reforms.
Council, in whose system are your local council councillors and MPs going to serve?
Let me give you examples. We need to appreciate by facts. When you're making research, we have qualitative and quantitative. Research dictates that we have had successful petitions being overturned on parliamentary level. True or false?
True.
Thank you. Research dictates that we have not had successful petitions being passed on the presidential level. True or false?
Achieved?
No, true or false?
No, true. What have they achieved? What have they achieved?
This is what we have to first appreciate is one, that laws are passed through legislature, right?
Definitely.
Meaning at whatever cost, each and every political party needs a representative to take or to make its manifesto reach the parliament through various amendments. That is the reality. It cannot be overturned. 3, we need also to first appreciate the fact. You see, if you are to analyze all the relevant laws, I know, Norman, you in yourself, you have an element of a council. Before even I go to my panelists here, there is no right that is overwritten in all laws on international standard and domestic standard more than the right to self-determination. I don't know. The right to self-determination. If I assign you to go and open the first article in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, it shall be the right to self-determination. If I assign you and task you to go and open the International Covenant on Social and Economic Rights, it shall be the right to self-determination. If I task you to go and read the first article of the 1995 Constitution of the Parliament of Uganda, what does it say?
You see, so
and the point is?
And the point is, one thing we need to first understand is Ugandans shall exercise their right to self-determination by determining how would they want their country to be, politically and economically. By knowing that this is how you want your country to be politically, and you analyze a challenge, or you come out to see that this is a challenge that is hindering you exercising fully exercising the right to self-determination politically,
Mr.
you
Namaka-
need to first,
Mr. Namakaji,
man-to-man,
Mr. Namakaji,
handle
did-
that challenge straight clear.
Mr.
And that is the electoral reform.
Okay.
Mr. Namakaji,
Now-
do you
okay.
have
where you have
do you have an idea on whether or not you're going to be advising your members to support a particular candidate for president at the moment?
At the moment, it is a no.
Okay.
Okay. You see, some
Well,
of
Deputy
such
President
discussions
has
help
been
us to also critically analyze some things. I'm imagining, it's an analogy.
Mm.
I'm imagining a big tray of rice, for instance. The other side, the rice is mixed with some bit of sand. And you say, we're not going to eat from the other side. But let us gamble and see whether this side tastes fair. Because,
see,
so literally, they are avoiding that side of the presidency. And now,
This is a mindset that we are facing as Ugandans. We have failed to differentiate between the result of a parliamentary election and the result of a presidential election. We need to first agree on that. Let me make an example. UPC has had almost twice court decisions annulling Mr. Jimmy Aken as the party president, right? And regardless of all that, Mr. Jimmy Aken has gone on to act as the party president. Has it stopped Uganda House from hosting Mr. Jimmy Aken? Where are the officers of UPC?
Council, let's...
No, I'm making
Yeah,
making a clear picture that there are some things you need to differentiate and there are some things you need to fight heads on. Let's appreciate the fact in reality that Uganda itself, to have a change in its foundation, in the head of the fish, as you said,
to begin from
we
Parliament.
need an electoral reform, strategically and meaningful electoral reforms.
But you're participating in the reforms in the
In our
act,
what?
in the act that you want to reform.
I gave you an example and I told you we have witnessed successful judgments on a parliamentary level being overturned. I can give you a lot of examples.
There are
I
so
know
many
you know.
petitions, yeah, there are
So
so many
if I
petitions.
still have hopes in parliamentary elections, I know that if I participate as an MP of a given constituency and I'm rigged, I can go to court and court overturns. We have seen that. So what stops me from participating in a parliamentary level?
But we also,
Where we have an issue that even though you go to court, you're not expecting to get justice is on the presidential level. And we are telling Ugandans that we need to be sincere and real to ourselves. We need to promote and fight and advocate for meaningful electoral reforms. Lastly, Norman, there is no way you can tell Ugandans that we need meaningful electoral reforms. And it is you, the same person, who is participating in the electoral reforms you're calling for. Then, if I fail, what am I going to tell people? That you see, by words I was telling you, we need meaningful electoral what?
reforms.
Madam President here, Yvonne, may I call her Madam President? Because of the confidence she has portrayed. I knew her even before her knowing me, like a year ago. But the way right now, the way she's feeling, by the process, just the pre-nomination process conducted by the EC, it is totally extravagantly uncalled for. And if you ask her, what remedy do you have as of now? Which nomination process are you entering into? And the law is not providing for you a quick remedy, such as an electoral appeal tribunal.
It's not there.
You took your forms, signature forms, and then one person is saying, perhaps there was
They
some
look alike.
empowered person. At that time, why are you running for a quick remedy? And the law is silent. It is making that person to be final.
How optimistic are you, and how optimistically do you think we can, you and I from political parties, persuade Ugandan citizens that there's a particular approach that we can use, me and you, in the absence of participation in presidential elections, to cause the change, including these electoral reforms, at this time?
Thank you. One, we believed that you have to first act by your words. By saying, I'm not taking part. We believed. Then me and you, what can we do?
Council, correct this. by saying we are partly taking part. Because
You're insinuating facts.
that is it. No. That's it.
You see, Norman.
Facts.
Facts speak for
Very
themselves.
good.
That is one.
So you are partly
Two.
participating.
And
not
I gave you the rationale, the ratio dissident as to why parliamentary elections still do carry weight and reason to participate in.
address.
Thank you. When we appreciate that, one, we have to first appreciate the kind of electorates we are having. One a panelist here, Madam President here, said that for you to appreciate or to win at times or to come up with a vibe, the electorate has to see you as the loudest candidate. Ugandans do not and will never appreciate reasonable mouthpieces. I have been with Senior Elder Joseph Ochen on various sessions, but I assure you that if we are to invite people to come and be in the audience, few people who understand will come and tap into your knowledge. Most of the Ugandans, the ones we call youths, move along with slogans. Need for electoral reforms is not the first time. SEDU.
Yeah, I remember there was.
SEDU came up and compiled around
reforms,
2016.
Yeah.
Compiled a book on electoral reforms. Court in 2016, after the Mama Babazi saga, came out and pronounced, even made timelines when we need to have some things changed up to date. The strategy is this. When court martial was still trying civilians civilians have been still trying in the court martial. My brother Norman, you remember very well that perhaps me and Aaron were victims of perhaps police at a court premise. We were being arrested at that time. We demanded for the decision in Michael Kabazi-Guruka. We failed to get it peacefully. We decided to move and walk to meet the Chief Justice. Police stopped us at the court gate, stopping advocates from entering court premise, discussing a court matter. Police had the guts of stopping us. We had to pull the gate open so that we enter. But all that, what did it help? It helped now to to start make civilians, Ugandans awake. Oh wait, kumbe we can try to move along and capture along like with this kind of agenda. The civil society, I remember by that time headed by Dr. Businje, the Agathas also came up and joined the campaign. By the time people got to know, Ugandans had started coming up from all corners to start to say, we need the Michael Kabazi-Guruka. Right now, what did we get? We got the judgment in favor of Ugandans. Why is it that we cannot stand as one, devise all means and strategies? Yes, battalions are many, but they're fighting the same what? For us, you have said, as of now, we have started. We are not participating in presidential election. But even another political organ, another political body might say, no, let us move to court. Another political body can say, let us do this. But I assure you, all political players, whenever we reach into general elections, the word need for electoral reforms loses meaning. And as of now, all people in the campaigns, no one will ever speak that we need electoral reforms. But after Mr. Byabakama announcing in January or February, they are going to start saying, why would you then cry for us? Yet we told you we need electoral reforms. You know the results, then you start saying, let us get meaningful, strategic reforms. And lastly, it is what we call the strategic.
As a matter of fact, there is not going to be a presidential campaign that will use that sound.
I will remind you back
without
here.
The sound, I doubt.
I will remind you back here that you have had a candidate who is crying meow. But lastly, the last remedy we must have as all political players, democratically, is to adopt and understand the meaning of strategic public interest litigation. As Ugandans, we have failed to understand that. Last year, Norman, you know the fact that last year it is globally, it is known as the year of elections. A lot of countries had elections last year. I was lucky that I had to observe some of the elections in South Africa and among other many countries. I tried to observe. But I assure you, most of those countries we are thinking about, the countries that held the elections last year, what they had to first fight for is there are two things: strategic public interest litigation that gives rise to the advocacy and fighting of meaningful electoral reforms. My sister, my president here was told, you have lower seats down there. What is the effect? Are we leaving that statement there? Can we try to get evidence as to that? And we come up to appreciate strategic, meaningful reforms? As we are speaking now, today, we had the case of Kizza Besigye versus the Cabinet Secretary of Kenya.
Yeah.
When they were arrested in Kenya, I was in Kenya. They were arrested, deported back, illegally and unlawfully. Could we say that we could have sat back home? Today, we had the constitutional scheduling conference of Kizza Besigye and Obed Lutale versus Attorney General in the Constitutional Court today at the same time. And people were asking ourselves, what is the rationale of two states giving us the same dates of the same whatever? Are you trying to frustrate the legal team? But strategically, what do we mean when we talk about strategic public interest litigation? If you before that, what are you going to do? So as political players, we need to come and make Ugandans understand in a meaningful way that we need electoral reforms. If UPC is taking us to court, let's go back to court. If we are saying we are not participating, let's do that. If we are saying we are going in for procession, let's do that. But not into a dogmatic procession with no meaning. We just have people dogmatically proceeding on two rallies. Then after there, you come out dogmatically and tell people, what? We shall not emerge victorious.
Okay,
let's look into our democratic values and principles for the better of Uganda.
Okay, you see, let's cancel Namakajo, Derek. And if what you are alluding to and, you know, everything I've mentioned really is picked by people of like minds, maybe would have a step forward. But then, I want to cross to Mpambara, Yvonne. And I will not avoid saying that now that history has put you on record for having been failed to be on this ballot paper. I want to believe that as a presidential material, you were following the sequence of events, at least basic speech highlights upon nominations for the rest of the candidates that were able to be nominated. And I highlight the president's message that protecting the gains. Honorable Mafabi said he wants to bring money to the pockets of citizens. Among others, do you think these messages that they put forward as being part of their manifesto are achievable? Of course, beginning with the president, he says he wants to protect the gains. What is your comment on the gains that he wants to protect?
For the president saying that it's a threat, I see that as a threat. What gains is he protecting? What gains is he protecting? We've questioned ourselves, and I'll use the example of public service, and how often we've said that the poor public services we have in Uganda are not by accident. They're engineered by the system to be the way they are. So at the end of the day, when we're seeing certain manifestos, I think the question that comes to most of our minds is, are we being threatened when we're told they're protecting the gains? What are the gains? The gains of poverty, poor
Mpambara,
quality education?
in your heart of hearts, and there are some gains by the NRM government.
You ask me that question every time I'm on this show. Every time I'm on this show.
The viewers are watching you, and whether or not there isn't.
If we're being honest, no. We have to be honest with Ugandans, and we have to be very, very genuine when it comes to the effects of what has been done to Ugandans. I cannot come and pull the 2% out of these gains you're talking about for me to summarize that this has been a good governance. Because it's not. Ugandans are crying. They're crying. So that's why I will ask you, him saying he's going to protect the gains, to me, to Ugandans sounds like a threat. Because your gains have all been adverse. Majority of them at least. I'm not going to get again the little percentage you're talking about to conclude on that they've been great gains for Ugandans. Maybe they were there at the beginning, but 40 years down the road, I don't think that's the same case. For the rest that are pointing out what their manifestos are, and I'll speak as a genuine Ugandan, we don't see the difference anymore. We're just now seeing politicians before us speaking.
All the
majority of them, because all these elections, I have been on this earth for 33 years. Those are 3 decades. I have watched the same arguments, the same manifestos, the same promises, the same, everything is just fabricated over and over. It gets monotonous at a certain point, and that's why Ugandans are now realizing that this is not working for them. If you follow the movements of people, especially online, the large communities, and now they are telling you, we are no longer interested in voting. These are some of the issues. Everything has become monotonous. We've watched the same thing, fabricated politics over and over. It's like politics just wears new clothes, a new suit, and just comes before us and starts saying the same things. So Ugandans are fed up. So in terms of them believing that these are achievable, I will tell you it's achievable in form of a threat for the top guy. Honestly, Ugandans feel like that's a threat. But for the rest, we are not seeing the difference. We are seeing the same politics, just regurgitated over and over. There are no new promises. So the best we can also pull out now is the comedy part of the politics. We just laugh about, abolishing Kiswahili and whatnot. But we move on. Ugandans are not interested. They were having debates the other day on Twitter, saying that on that day of elections, I'll be at my home drinking tea because I'm not bothered anymore.
One of the presidential candidates is trying to be symbolic and saying that having that tray, I hope that's the right word for even a tray, Lusania, right? Like they call it. It is symbolic of a serving plate where every person will be in position to tap onto the national dining plate, if I may use the word. So it may not necessarily mean that, the comedy, like you want to put it, simply being symbolic. Like someone say, this is what we represent for all of us to share. And if such a candidate wants every person to share, would it be ideal for you to say, maybe, he represents some bit of...
Ugandans are fed up of those symbols. We need to see some more action.
We need to be clear and appreciate the fact that politics at times is driven by the trend. That is the reality. I can assure you, during Ruto's win, I was in Kenya, and most of the Kenyans were laughing. The day they rode His Excellency William Samuel Ruto in the wheelbarrow, and people were saying, what kind of symbol is that? And I assure you that the wheelbarrow took him to State House. So we just need to attach the true meaning to a political whatever, because for him it was the hustler's nation. And indeed, there's nothing that could speak loud enough than a wheelbarrow to a hustler. There is nothing that can speak loud enough to sharing a national cake. I subscribe to the Democratic Front, but when it comes perhaps to that kind of reasoning, even to the common man, a common man, they tell you that when you come for Uma, we are eating pilau, we need to sit on what? on a platter.
We shall proceed.
But you know the effects of
we'll have a minute
of self-service.
But there's also some other challenge where some of the beef chunk is pushed onto a specific individual. Proceed in a minute.
No more than self-service.
After 40 years, it becomes very complicated to compare ourselves to the neighbors in forms of trends. It becomes very hard. And you can see the level of frustration that Ugandans have towards governance when you actually have a good conversation with some of them. Just walk down the street and ask one person what they think about elections. They'll be very honest with you. So it's a level of frustration they've reached where they don't believe in majority of these processes anymore. They don't believe in them anymore. So no matter the trend, no matter the slogans, no matter the... What a person is seeing is frustration because they know Museveni is going to come back. What else are you going to tell them from that?
I don't.
And what's the problem? Electoral laws.
Let me use the powers that I have
Sorry.
to give you the 3 or so means, because this seems like your last submission. Now that you are not on ballot, you say that Ugandans will tell you that in any case Mr. Museveni is coming back. How differently were you going to participate in the very process, on the very ballot, where you now say that in any case he's going to come back?
That's to me?
Yeah, sure.
We're offering a very strong alternative vision for Ugandans that we feel has not been in the politics of this country for quite some time. So in terms of the vision we're offering, it was that we've reached this level where we are fed up. How do we start working together to make sure that we have at least certain reforms that are going to, I'll say maybe gently, have this gentleman slowly shoved to the extremes so that we're prepared. Let me be honest with you. We are preparing for the transition now. We're preparing for the transition. I know he's agreeing because now parts of what I'm saying.
Because
Now, yeah.
transition forms part of the reforms. That's what we are calling
So
for.
we are preparing for life after this man because we felt we've had to wait for circumstances or situations of life, unfortunately, for him to reach this level and say, I am going for the last time, or this is my... Because we are seeing him now, very frail. He's honestly, if he goes past this term, it's going to be very, very unfortunate.
Maybe to remind you, he said his grandfather lived for 100 and how many years? So just be patient. And
No, there's no patience. So we are going through a transition period where we feel for Uganda now we need to prepare for collective action towards an alternative vision past Museveni. And that is a message we're going to sell to them. We are all fed up. We are all tired. Where are we going to now channel our frustration to make sure that even the change that comes after this man is something that we are looking forward to? Are we looking forward to a Mohozi presidency? Honestly, no. And we are going to speak it here. I feel like it's a generation now for me who has to start the fight early so that we are not now fighting with new frustrations in front of someone else who is carrying the vision of this man we've been trying to remove for the past 40 years.
The son could be different from the father.
No. It's the same system. It's the same system.
Okay.
It's the same system.
Madam President was bringing a reform agenda, reform transition agenda.
It's the same
You have
system.
a minute, then I pass to Mr. Ucheni.
So we're offering that alternative vision that together as Ugandans, we can achieve something past Museveni, and we need to prepare for the future of this country past NRM. As a party, I am also disqualifying the party at this point because I feel that entire system now has to find an outlet.
So between, okay, finally, between now and 2029, what are you going to be engaged in regards to your political life?
We're going to continue the work. Majority of it is now to start mentoring, but also building more groundwork in terms of the networks, in terms of collaborations, because we felt majority of, most of our message now has to reach most people at even the grassroots. So for example, our political parties have had an advantage. We felt, I mean, I'm going to speak from the experience of the signature collection process. We felt that that's why they had an advantage to be able to do their work properly. I'm coming from a generation or generations of young people that feel political parties have let them down because we've not seen anything different. So we had felt being independent, which is rightly provided for by the Constitution, is something we can run along and try and cause change. But I genuinely believe the system has been very intentional about removing independent candidates, which again, I don't understand. I guess along the way, we'll find out why. But we feel there's so much collaboration that has to be done with grassroots, that has to be done with different categories of Ugandans for us to be able to push the message that there's an alternative vision for Uganda past Museveni, and that even if we are praying for a transition past this ruling government, that we have to be ready to take on the leadership mantle of this country and that even young people and women have a huge role to play, like they played for the last parts, to meaningfully participate, to lead this country as well, and that they're not relegated to the sidelines like we've been done on this ballot by the Electoral Commission and the powers that be to intentionally eliminate us from power, that we now have to strategically build towards how we can transform the space in general. So we feel there's a lot of work to do.
Mr. Ochieno Joseph, you have your 3.5 minutes to communicate to the viewers on whether or not you see some substance amongst the people. I don't want to say, of course. Okay, people who appear who will appear on the ballot, on whether you see, and of course I will begin with the president himself, and his catchy word is protecting those gains.
I rarely complain about the time given to me, but I know we really have to close because the media is my trade for a long time. But I just need to say this, that it's extraordinary that Yvonne was born 7 years after NRA came into power. 7 years is a very long time. UPC2 governed in just under 4.5 years, delivered massive reforms to this country between 1981 and 85. 7 years of ban on political parties, 7 years of brutality against UPC members and leaders of political parties and demonization of political parties and organizations, massive support from Western countries whose interest in this country was nothing but to loot and build a strategic hegemonic program to exploit the continent. It's not surprising that political parties returned 15 years later. So Yvonne was now about 14, 15, you know. So the first 15 years of her life, no clue about political parties and organizations and nothing else but continuous demonization. It's not surprising that she's where she is at the moment, as far as values and of political parties and in terms of their roles, and weakened parties that have been infiltrated and frustrated. Yvonne's nearest opportunity would have been in 2016 if UPC fielded a candidate post. That was the second time for her, but roughly at a critical moment when she would be looking much more closely at what political parties and organizations represent. We didn't field the candidate. In 2021, we didn't field the candidate. This time around, we don't have a candidate. In all those three, although the first two were strategic positions of individuals who were in the leadership of UPC, this clearly has been a deliberate system, a program using systems that include the judicial process, the judicial system, to deny Ugandans and my party, a political party, representation at the elections. What has happened is that Ugandans have been, UPC has been denied its flag to appear, but Ugandans have been denied the most ambitious program this country would have as a list, as a manifesto. Because not only do we have the best, but we had the best. And by then, the last elections in 1980, only UPC had a manifesto, Yvonne. UPC had a manifesto, DP did not, NRA didn't. So that's how bad it is in context. So I'm not surprised by the position she takes, but again, that's important. And if she represents a critical majority of young people, Norman, you see the challenges facing us as a country going forward, meaning you and I need to do a lot of work, including through your media, to persuade more young Ugandans to get much more involved and then to get into the mainstream politics, political parties, including what to do. Now, in terms of these 8 individuals, I don't know, I haven't a clue, because I don't know what any of them represent, with absolute respect. Genuinely, I don't know what they represent. Museveni, I know, represents himself and his grandchildren, as he said. But beyond that, I genuinely don't know what it represents. And in the last 40 years, it has been the most atrocious years of this country. And I hope Uganda does not ever go through another 40 years in the lifetime of my children and children's children. The rest of the others, I can tell you, I know. Grigori is a good guy, you know. Robert's a good young man who tried to wake up this country. But I don't know what they represent, and I don't know what the political organizations represent. Now, you ask me to read them. I've read manifestos, and I've contributed to writing one. Political parties represent values and ideology. I come from an ideologically socio-democratic roots. I would like to be able to see those messages down there. This sloganeering that people pick and then go ahead and copy manifestos of ZANU-PF, manifestos of some crooked party in Ghana, and the looks really posh, and then come and say, that's neither here nor there. That's why I say you have to see these in the leaders. You have to see it in their voices. You have to see their means. It does not. So I genuinely don't know that there is anything new that is actually coming to our people. But the only thing I can say is this, that whatever happens, Ugandans have been denied critical thinking and critical opportunity. And my worry is that younger Ugandans who have continuously been disenfranchised need to wake up and realize that whatever is happening at this election, the next election is going to be about them. So unless there is anybody with the big ideas, that the UPC big ideas on education, UPC big ideas on health, UPC big ideas on agriculture and infrastructure and jobs and the environment, the big ideas of our national security. This NRA bunch have been around for the last 40 years and they talk security. But for 20 years, half this country was at war. For 20 of the 40 years, nearly 1/3 of this country was merely at war. People in northern Uganda, northern eastern Uganda were literally effectively in concentration camps. So talk security, what security? Talk security, what security? So that the young people of NUP were subject to the other day. Talk in democracy, what democracy when a political party can have a case in court and takes 10 years? What institutional arrangement? So it's bungled. I think we need to do a reset. And whatever happens, I think I agree with Derek here. I don't know what happens with the next few years. This country needs a reset. We need to have a very urgent national conference, a national conversation that involves all political players and all key participants, including from civil society and people like Yvonne, so that we begin to debate a positive Museveni Uganda in which we heal, reconcile, and seek truth, and be able to redesign a future of Uganda in which people like them can have a genuine future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheno Joseph. I will give Councilor Makajo strictly 1.5 minutes, and you can have your closing remarks.
Oh, Miss, even I can use 5 seconds. The main reason is one, that my
By the way, are you contesting for MP?
I'm not contesting.
Oh.
I'm not contesting. By the way, now let me use the 1 minute.
You feared the
It's not about fearing, but the main instance, I'm one of the people who believe that electorates, to have good leaders, we need to differentiate. Are you a politician good for elective politics, or you're a politician good for technical administrative work?
So where do you belong?
The reason as to why perhaps I was elected as Deputy Secretary General is, as of now, I believe I'm a good technocrat. I'm a good administrative personnel. And there's no reason as to why I misuse my knowledge and skills by vying for an elective office. You find a person who is good in elective office and is being made a Secretary General. I'm one of the people who believe that a political party to successfully run, it needs a Secretary General who doesn't run for any elective office. I am that person who believes that if you have an elective Secretary General, a Secretary General who is in elective politics, a lot of conflict of interest issues shall have to rise. I also believe that the allocation of resources shall not be done equitably, because, mind you, there is no way you shall have a Secretary General who is the head of the Secretariat failing to allocate to him or herself 10 million of the 100 millions, if any, and people, the beneficiaries are 10, and you think that he or she will give him or herself 10 million and also gives you 10 million. It is totally impossible. So we need, I believe we need to go back and analyze the need and how political parties indeed are meant to run. Those are sincere questions as Ugandans who subscribe to each and to different political parties, so that even we create room for Yvonne's to feel at liberty and to have the passion of joining the Democratic Front. Because yes, I believe that I am a Secretary General, with no other interest. I shall, if Yvonne comes in and she's competing, I shall accord the equitable remedies as I am supposed to do.
Okay.
Currently, I continue call for the need to advocate for the electoral reforms that Madam President calls the transitional agenda. If you are to read the DA, the Democratic Alliance agenda book, we launched one like 4 months ago, and it stipulates what Yvonne talks about, the transitional agenda. Call it the post-Museveni Uganda times. We need to deliberately, openly enter into a discussion on that. Thank you.
Viewers, I want to say thank you for your time. But of course, your data, because we know it's not as easy. And our guests for making it here. Just to say, catch you next time. No man signs out.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.